something
that's attempting to co-opt something I've been working on for a while, and we'll discuss it because I think I have a legit grievance. I'm just gonna be honest.
Oh, you do? Okay, so I got to do. So you see this, right?
Seed.
So I had a guy send it to me, so I gotta shout him.
Absolutely.
All right, so it's The Seed, right? It's all about like growth and all this kind of inspirational type deal, and I had to put it all here. So it's Smitty J on Instagram.
I think he follows me.
Yeah, he started following us recently.
Sweet.
So it's SMITTYJ 1971.
Okay.
All one deal on Instagram. I'm gonna tag it in the video stuff below. And The Seed, THA Seed. So it's there. He does clothing, does some
is it
stuff.
Clothing brand?
Yeah, so he's got hats, he's got clothing. The one I liked is there's one. It's Focus with the S as the seed. Right. So it's all about just personal growth and all this kind of stuff. But you got to check his Instagram out. He doesn't have a lot of followers. But he's funny as shit.
Oh, I'm down.
Like he does a lot of the day, and he's got a lot of range in what he does.
I
and the
don't
whole
give a
thing.
shit how many
Dude.
followers you got.
That's what I need. I need recommendations because my gram game is terrible. I don't even know how to use it, and just
dude, I was looking
I
at
posted
your
like
Instagram
9
today.
times, I think, maybe.
Like within 4 pictures, it's 5 years old. I'm
yeah,
like, dude.
yeah.
Well, because I was like, dude, you sent me his
pictures of us as
Facebook.
purple belts. I didn't send his gram because it was so bad. There's a picture of you in Forest when you were no AC Jiu-Jitsu at Elite.
So, Jason, it's so bad that my profile pic on Facebook was the same for probably 5 years. And I just recently changed it because my wife got promoted to her brown belt in jiu-jitsu.
I saw that.
And so I changed it. But and that was the only reason it got changed was because it was like a big deal, But yeah, I don't keep up with it. I used to. Just now I'm just kind of like, yeah. So yeah, I definitely could use my gram game is weak at best. And I had to ask a girl the other day at the gym, like, hey, how do you share multiple pictures? And she walked me through it and was like, yeah, you click on this and you do that. And I just was like, and she was like a lower belt than me. And at that moment, you're just like, yeah, you're a white belt in life. I couldn't even manage to figure out how to do pictures on Instagram. So it's not my strong suit.
It was your birthday, though, wasn't it?
What?
it was just your birthday. Like, how old are you?
Yeah, the one you forgot.
How old are you?
Let's back up.
Yeah.
Let's back up.
I was,
Facebook told him it was my birthday.
And I sent you hello
2
birthday.
days
Facebook.
later,
No,
I got a
was
request
one
from
day
him.
later. It was
No,
one day
remember
later.
this. Remember we talked about that little thing called mute.
Yeah.
When we're out there and the people don't know.
So
you might have
muted
just
me,
been muted.
Nope.
Yeah.
I would never mute my best friend.
I would disagree only because it's not like I post anything to get muted, but he is of
First of all,
age. He's getting in that mature stage of life where sometimes
you tag me in so much shit.
I do.
Which I will say this: it's legitimately
pretty good
entertaining
stuff.
shit.
Pretty good stuff.
But I know you're active. Don't play like you're not active. You're on the.
I just don't.
What
post
did you call
a
it?
lot.
The gram.
The gram. Isn't that what the kids are calling these days?
It's like saying my face. Did you used to call Facebook?
no,
you used to call
I don't
Facebook
know.
my face. No, you used to call it. Is it my face? You used to call it my face.
I don't even.
You remember MySpace?
Yeah. Oh, he
He
screwed
would call
up.
it. He would. No, he did it on purpose. He would
Oh,
call it
yeah,
my
yeah,
face.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm
My
on the
face,
my
yeah.
face. I'm
Yeah.
like.
Because I wanted to combine. I thought those two someday would join powers. I didn't know Facebook would just kind of dominate and take over. So I was trying to be forward thinking, but Captain Killigream
I liked
over
it.
here.
I still call it the my face.
the my face. Well, because then it's IG, the Insta, and then it's IG.
The gram.
now.
I haven't heard the gram yet.
I'm gonna start that one. So if you guys want,
Sounds like a bad movie.
Maybe we can get these guys the seed to make us shirts that say
the gram?
seed
The gram.
slash the gram or at the gram.
At the gram.
Could be.
Find us
Throwing it
at
out
the
there.
gram.
So.
All right,
I
Smitty.
like it.
He might be watching early on right now.
Are we live
I don't
here
know.
yet?
Yeah, we're live. Yeah.
Oh shit! What's up, guys?
Yeah, dude.
I didn't realize we were live.
I just let it roll, man.
That's fine. You
We
just
just
slipped
go
that
like
one
that.
right in
I
there.
did. I did.
You're like a little rape sloth.
It was a little bit of. You're like, hey, I think something just happened.
Yeah.
A bunch of little elves
My-
and nymphs just came running through the damn room.
Entered. I wasn't
See,
expecting.
you weren't ready for that, man.
Doctor said just pressure.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
So I might be. I didn't really throw you under the bus too bad in my post because I didn't really know. So now I know it's a little bit all right seeing your post.
Yeah.
Oh no. Everything's off limits when it comes. Or everything's. There's nothing off limits.
Everything's fair game.
Yeah.
With this guy and me.
Yeah.
I actually got in trouble at work one time. We were
Because of him?
posting so
Wait,
much. We were posting
you
so
talking about the
much
meme
shit.
war?
The meme war.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
My boss had to call me in and say, listen, it's getting a little bit out of hand. The homosexual posts between you and him. Well, we had our friend Forrest,
Yeah. Egging us on. so that
AKA
wasn't-
Classy Grappler, was getting on there. And if you know him, if anybody follows him, they know he posts a shit ton of memes.
troll.
He trolls everybody relentlessly, and he's really good at cropping. I don't know what he does all day. I know his job. I can't mention it on here, but he doesn't. I don't know what he does all day at his job that he can just sit there and crop endless memes all day long.
It's easy. It's easy. It's like the one I did with Derek.
No, but he floods it. Like he's just one after the other after the other. I don't know how. It's
like he's got a file somewhere on his phone just ready to go, you know, and just.
Oh man.
But I mean, it's almost like that's his part-time job because he's officially like fancying himself like a troll, and the more famous the people are, and he manages to get in with them. It's the craziest thing. Like he's made contacts with some of the greatest grapplers on the planet, and now they're friends, and it's all because of trolling. And it's almost like now it's like a badge of honor, like if you get trolled by this guy, you know. And it's like when we were coming up, it was just torture. Like there was you know, he just. It was like
damn it. If he got locked into you, which he would do,
Jason, the scariest thing is if you were just minding your business and all of a sudden you got a notification and you look at your phone and you just read the glance and it says Classy Grappler has posted and you're like tagged you and you're just like the first thing you always think is, oh my God, is my mom gonna see this? Because you know it's always gonna be something inappropriate. So like it was that bad. Like if this guy tags you, you just know you better get on there quick. Make sure that if it needs to come down, it's coming down.
You can untag yourself.
Well, it was bad enough that my boss called me in.
Yeah, there you go.
Just I don't know what's going on here, but we need to
take it down a level.
Let's take this. Let's just drop it down a level. So I had to send everybody, hey guys, can we stop with naked dudes hugging posts and on the couch together?
Not that. Okay, dude.
Yeah,
disclaimer. Not that. The department is against any.
No, it wasn't that. It could have been naked with a chick.
It was just simply the nakedness.
The appropriateness of the posts was considered in question because of my position as a police officer.
You have to cover your ass with all the PC stuff we're gonna get. I'll get all the hate.
Oh, you'll get all the hate.
Soon you're gonna start getting the hate.
Yeah. I'm getting something.
Oh, I know. Yeah. He sent me a message the other day just salty that somebody lit him up, some troll, and it was kind of funny because I'm like, man, if this is what you want to do, then that's gonna come with it, you know, because I can only imagine. But you know, I mean, I remember when I ran for vice president in 7th grade, like somebody took my posters and wrote stuff on it. I was devastated because I was like, oh my God, I'm trying to better the school. Like, how could you know?
Yeah.
But it's like one of those things where it does feel like a personal attack, and it's just, you know, you get these guys that want to get online, and everybody's got a voice now, and you know, it is what it is.
You gotta welcome it, man. Like literally, here's my deal. I will make a post, says I'm a lifetime drug-free athlete. I've never had alcohol, never done these things. And if you do use drugs in America, you're a criminal. I just said it, so let the hate roll.
There you go.
Literally, when we're done with this, I will have 30 or 40 personal messages. I've disabled them on one of the platforms. I can't remember which one. But I'll get blasted with hate because I just said that right now. God forbid I post it.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm going the fuck to hell, dude. I'm straight to hell. They will rip me a new asshole because of that. And I'm just like, oh, okay, criminal. You know, like this kind of, you know, because it's the reality of it.
It's true.
And you know, when I say drugs, I actually mean steroids and things of that nature. Not.
Well, they look at you and they're like, "There's no way."
Yeah.
That's the first assumption.
Yeah.
There's no way
you can't do it.
There's no such thing.
Whatever.
Well, I'll one up you. I mean, I've never drank either. I've never drank, no drugs. But I'll one up you. I've never worked out either. So I've been doing jiu-jitsu for over 10 years, since 2007. And that's where we met. And to this day, he's been trying to get me into a gym to actually lift weights.
Tried so hard.
No.
So you've never lifted weight? Because you work out. I mean, get out of here.
I don't. I literally, the only exercise I ever do is jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, but if you do it right, that's
you know, but you know,
nothing to shy away from.
He's always been trying to get me to come in, and my argument was always the same, that one of the greatest grapplers on the planet, Marcelo Garcia, he doesn't work out. He just does jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And then I met this other black belt once, and he was the first one that kind of made sense. He said, look, because he was a pretty ripped up guy, and he said, hey, he's like, do you think I like working out? I was like, obviously you must. I was like, you know, look at you. And he was like, no, he's like, I only do it as, because he's an older guy, he said, I only do it as maintenance, preventative maintenance. He's like, because of what we do, it's so physically demanding on our bodies that I need that extra layer of protection to help me with not getting injured and recovery. And he was the first person that, from that standpoint, I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe there is something to this, and maybe I will try to work out. And I've been having that same thought now for about 7 years.
Okay,
but
we're almost there.
I'm almost there. You know, there's
No, he's not.
lately. I'll tell you what. The funny thing about it is that my wife and I, we love watching anything related to CrossFit. The CrossFit Games. You know, we follow certain athletes. You know, we've been to a couple of CrossFit gyms to talk about memberships. My buddy has a place he goes to, and we want to try it, more her than I.
Yeah.
But it's just a matter of, I want to say I almost have a borderline obsessive, like my personality, I guess. And I feel like selfish in that I need to dedicate all my time to one thing versus being more versatile. And that's where I get hung up, because I said to myself, when I become a purple belt, I'm going to start focusing on my stand-up. I've got one of the greatest professors on the planet. He's like 4 people removed from Bruce Lee. And, you know, he's one of the highest people ranked in North America for Jeet Kune Do. And I have that as a resource right there at my fingertips. And I figured, okay, when I get to purple belt, that's it. I'm in the middle. You know, I'm going to focus on kind of expanding and becoming more well-rounded. And I tried to go to JKD, and I'd be in JKD and I'd be looking over in the corner like, oh man, looks pretty cool what they're doing over there, you know? Yeah. And so my focus was just always been on jiu-jitsu, and I've never been able to just kind of get away from that, because I feel like that's the thing that I love and I'm passionate about. But at the same time, it's like I know now, and now that I'm a black belt, I'm like, okay, no more excuses. Now let's start focusing on your stand-up and become more well-rounded. But then at the same time, it's like every time I want to do anything other than jiu-jitsu, I feel like I'm missing out. Someone else is training, and I didn't learn that move or that technique. And then it's a combination of a little bit of obsessiveness and competitiveness in me, where I just don't want to miss any jiu-jitsu.
So I have some advice for you. Okay,
Please.
but I got to shut this down.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we could do it. So everybody join us.
Hit
YouTube,
end on the top right corner.
YouTube.com/Jason C. Powell, or
there you go. And then
on
in my feed,
JasonCPowell.com.
hit save on the top right corner, and then share. Oh, there we go. Hey you. That's I think it's Marcelo Garcia. Speaking of Marcelo Garcia, you made a point that was inaccurate. Marcelo Garcia does lift weights, and I believe Tran sent you a video of him doing some weightlifting.
He lifts people.
And I lit you up in our little private little group.
I have to go back and check the archives, because I don't believe that
listening, because he hit me up. So Tran, could you resend that to our little chat group to remind this guy?
Tran, if you're listening, you do not need to send that. Thank
All right,
you.
so here's the deal, okay? Look at weights like this. Okay, a way, just simply say to yourself, I'm going to learn to lift weights in a very basic foundational way to increase my bone density and to increase the rate in which I recover or decrease my recovery time.
Okay.
That's it. You're not going to do it to get stronger, although that'll be a side effect. It's not the goal. The goal is you want to increase your bone density. That's important in jiu-jitsu. You know, your joint structure. And well, I'm serious, right? We just had a birthday.
Yeah.
I don't think it was the 21st.
It wasn't.
I'm just saying, you know.
No, it'll pass.
So look at it that way. So really all you're going to do is you can go into the gym. I would say you do a basic bench press, basic deadlift, basic squat, super basic foundational movement, maybe some power cleans, not too much, a little bit of Olympic lifting. You can do a little bit of all of those in a 30 to 45-minute session.
Okay.
You're done. Couple working sets each. You just want to just introduce the load. Then, for that last 10 to 15 minutes, so you hit an hour, do some plyometrics.
Do you know plyometrics?
So,
I'm assuming some sort of
box
cardio?
jumps. No. Box jumps, bounding, explosive work.
Jason, let me just help you out real quick. If you're talking any type of gym talk, weightlifting, anything,
yes,
pretend
pictures
that he's
would be
a
better.
5-year-old.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Explain it like that. Because if you say plyometrics, like you
We
said,
jump big time, sandbox.
That's what I need, right? Yeah.
There you go. He's gonna go cardio. Is that cardio?
You know,
Sandbox, good, ladder, happy.
I would joke with him because I would tell him, I know he's not religious. I'm not really religious either, but I would say, you're going to have to answer to somebody when you leave this earth. And I would tell him, if it is God, how are you going to explain spitting in his face? And he'd look at me like, what are you talking about? I'd be like, well, you altered the tempo he gave you. Here you are altering, making it all muscly and trying to look good and this, that, and the other. That's not what God gave you. So what gave you the right to you know, everything he creates is perfect supposedly. So why are you altering it?
Hey, look,
So
man.
I don't know that I can. I'm not a religious guy, but at the same time, I don't know that I want to risk it. And, you know, start getting all these muscles
The
and getting all
altering?
yoked out.
I know.
Not
see?
altering, I'm
Scary.
enhancing.
You might
I'm
be
enhancing.
upsetting
Enhancing,
the
I don't know.
ultimate being.
Yeah, I can't risk that. So,
That
but
was-
we'll look into it because I do like the idea of box jumping. I've
every
seen it
time-
on the CrossFit Games. It looks fun.
Every
Yeah.
time we drive
So-
by a gym, but hey, look over there. He's like, yeah, no.
Nah.
Yeah, I'm like, keep
Yeah.
driving.
Yeah. You live in this part of town?
I live in Richmond right now. Yeah,
Oh, like Richmond, Richmond.
yeah, Richmond, Rosenberg.
Oh, crap.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, there's a couple boxes
I
out there.
don't think there's any gyms out there. I've looked.
But then, like, right around.
I'm kidding,
You're like,
I'm sure there is.
but then, like,
no, there's no gyms. I'll
3 or 4 doors down from where you train is Bunker
Yeah.
Hill.
Yeah, there's literally like where Third Coast is at. Like now, there's actually, like you said, Bunker is right there in
Yeah.
the same little plaza. Down the street is another one. Like, of course, now I'm going blank trying to remember the name, but we went and visited and we did like a little bit of an intro class. And I definitely will admit that I could benefit from it because they had us doing a thing where you just pick up the bar and you just kind of roll it up on whatever this
Like a hang clean. Yeah.
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 and then you kind of do like a squat. Well, my shoulders are so tight that I couldn't comfortably even put that bar on me. This guy's showing off by putting his arms straight out and just holding the bar like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And me, I literally was twisting and I couldn't get that bar. Of course, my wife got it perfect, so I never heard the end of it to this day. I think that's why she wants to do CrossFit so bad because
She can kick your
we're
ass.
both very competitive, and she's never. I'm gonna say this right now for the record. She's never beat me at anything ever. Everything we've done, she's always doubted me. Any sport, anything we do, naturally gifted. And it drives her bananas, but I think CrossFit might be the one that she might get me on. I might have to come stay with you later tonight.
That's
We'll
what
talk
I'm
about
saying.
that
Like
later.
back
Ooh, I'm
away a
about to
little
say,
bit.
man,
Lightning.
that's
Gonna be
strong
striking.
statements right
No,
there.
I'll go on record. You know, it
Oh,
is
it's
what
on
it is.
record.
Yo,
It's
It's on
on.
record. There's no going back.
no take backs.
It's not like
No
it's
take
like a
well,
let me tell you-
you know,
no-
Jason, you can edit this. You got
No,
your
no,
switchboard.
it's
So,
live. It's live. It's
well,
live.
you know, I
Let me
mean,
tell you,
is
it's
it really
like-
live? I'm sure there's a delay.
These
so.
words are like bullets. Once they come out, you can't pull them back.
Okay,
no
well,
I actually can do the delay thing. I just have to hit it within 10 seconds.
there's no
We're way
delay.
past 10 seconds.
we've gone too far.
It's
yeah.
too late.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good to know. Thanks
I
for
know
that,
Holly,
guys.
so that'll be-
I didn't think you guys meant live. I thought it was just more like a, like a,
It's
you know,
recorded
a
live.
loose kind of get live.
It's like
so.
jujitsu. You have to learn
Yeah.
the hard way.
Yeah. And what is it? Winning or learning? So we'll learn tonight.
You're the winner. You learn.
Yeah,
So
well,
you're
we'll
doing a
find
lot
out
of learning
tonight.
Right now.
A lot of learning. Holy crap. Yeah.
So can I ask you a question? Because
Yeah.
I was curious. I know I've listened to some of your podcasts, and you've said on a couple occasions your background. You have background in martial arts, but I wasn't. What exactly?
So my foundation is Taekwondo.
Okay.
That's where everything started. And
All
then
right.
super long story short, because a lot of these people have
Yeah, I was gonna
They're-
say. I know
they're
that
sick
I'm
of
late to
me.
the party. Yeah.
I've traveled all over the world. I've studied arts all over the world. So I've studied sambo. I've studied jiu-jitsu down in Brazil.
Okay.
Small stuff in Sao Paulo, then over to Rio to their main campus. I mean, all over, everything from Thailand, doing Thai fighting, Muay Thai, to I tried a little bit of traditional boxing. Not my thing. I have a problem with kicking people.
Or not kicking people.
Yeah.
Because you said you didn't like boxing, right?
Yeah. Well, the kicking is the problem. So yes, you could say that either way.
Yeah, because I was
I
thinking
could
about the
have a
way you
problem
said that.
restraining myself, or
Right.
problem just kicking the shit out of people. Like I
Yeah.
love to. Oh man.
Kicks, huh?
And even this is a probably you'll see this. Even when I roll, I have a tendency my shins are like weapons, dude. We'll play after this. You'll see they're like blades. All the
Okay.
iron body training and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. That's real.
Yeah.
Like a lot of people are like, well, it's iron body training. You literally have different weighted bars that you roll up and down your shins and
Oh, yeah,
forearms
I've
and
heard about
stuff.
all
Oh
that.
man, that
I've
sounds.
I mean, I literally have blades on my
yeah.
shins.
Yeah.
I'm gonna pass on that rope, but I'll let you two work that out. Because
But yeah, so that's the deal. So that's the whole thing. Kung Fu to Muay Thai to the whole. So I mean, yeah, a lot of.
yeah,
different-
I was just curious. 'Cause like I said,
Yeah.
I heard you say it a few times, but I wasn't sure. Like, because like if this one and I get going about jujitsu, I wasn't sure. Like, was your background in
Oh, I'm
some
good.
jujitsu
Yeah,
and.
I'm good.
Because it's not like when you guys start talking about weights and all that, I just
You're
walk
lost.
out and come back
Yeah.
whenever you guys are done. Because I get completely lost with that. So I was
And
just
that's
curious.
and I'll plug this one because a lot of people always ask. So like part of my tattoo is so the original art's up behind you. We look on the way out, but it identifies below the Azure Tiger all the different martial arts
Okay.
and things. Yeah, so it's
Cool.
like life's totem up there.
Hmm.
'Cause people always ask, so way to plug that one in there. Yeah.
Well, anyway,
Yeah.
so with Ronnie, gosh, we've known each other 11 years.
Yeah.
Started out as white belts together. Still remember our first roll together.
Yeah.
And that's where we locked eyes, and
that was it. Yeah.
It's been forever.
And the sweet music. God, I wish I had music.
It's been forever. It's been happily forever after since then. But I remember our first roll. Were we white belts? We had to be white belts back then.
Yeah, I don't even think we had belts at that point.
You didn't even
probably
roll
had karate belts.
No, back then.
I did start in the gi. I did start in the gi, but Jason and I, our first roll was in
no gi.
Was it no gi?
Yeah,
it was no
it
gi. Yeah.
no-gi.
Yeah, you know what? He's right, because I did start in gi, immediately hated it, and found out there was a no gi class. And, you know, like every other meathead at the time, you're like, this isn't real. Why am I going to wear pajamas? And, you know, this is going to work in the streets because nobody's going to be wearing this. So when I found no gi, I was like, oh, this is it. Like, why didn't somebody tell me about this sooner? And so him and I met, he's right, in no gi. And it's funny how things come full circle, because Jason and I, our first roll, he pulled bottom like a half guard. He put me in what's called a lockdown. So basically he had my leg, and the lockdown, it's a funny position because it's either you're going to lock yourself down or you're going to lock the whole match if you don't know what you're doing. And of course, neither one of us knew what we were doing. So he catches me in this lockdown for literally a 5-minute match.
Yeah,
where
typical white belt move.
Yeah.
we were just kind of teeter-tottering back and forth. He'd move, I'd adjust, I'd move, he'd adjust, and we did this for 5 minutes. And nobody got a better position. Nobody learned anything, but that was our first roll. And then here recently, when he got his black belt, we had a roll. You know, after he got his black belt. Tell me why we ended up in the exact same move. Now, this time it was more fun, and we were both extremely active with it, and we knew what we were doing. But it was just kind of like one of those cool moments. It was like Hakuna Matata, you know, like, wow, like it's come full circle. Like, you know, we've been friends since for 11 years. We started off together as white belts in his no-gi class, you know, and it's funny because when I left, we both trained at the same place, and we both left for different reasons. And when he left before me, in fact, let me tell you what this dirty move he pulled. He left 2 weeks before I was going to get my blue belt. Because I was of the I'll remind you. Is that when
you got your blue belt?
I was of the mindset that
your blue belt.
I never tested for. I trained almost 4 years, and I never tested for any belts because I felt it was kind of a weird thing that, I don't know. I just kind of felt like if you think I'm of a certain skill set and you feel like I should be promoted to that rank, then I'm happy to take that rank. But I didn't understand the whole dog and pony show here. Like, why do I have to pay for this belt? Why do I have to come in and do a test in front of all these people? It didn't make a lot of sense to me. I just felt like, you know, if you want to reward me with that, then I'm happy to accept it. I'm honored, but I wasn't going to put on a show for it. You know, it's something about it just never sat right with me. And so, Forrest, classy grappler, he took me under his wing. We had a really flexible schedule. And so we basically ended up training every day for about an hour or two. I'm a white belt training with a dude that's got a black belt in jiu-jitsu, sambo, and on judo. Yeah. And he's just destroying me every day for about 2 hours every day. But, you know, I mean, the learning curve was pretty fast. And I learned a lot of leg locks as a white belt that I probably shouldn't have been doing. But, you know, I picked up a lot from him. But, like, I just wasn't a fan of the whole process of the promotions. And he called me up and said, hey, listen, you're gonna test, because the belt was coming up. He said, you're going to test. And I was like, kick it out of here. You know, I don't care about the belts. Yeah. And he said, no, he's like, you're not doing it for them. He's like, you're doing it for me because you owe me. He's like, I've been working with you for 6 months straight in the gi. He's the one that put me in the gi. Yeah. He said, you know, you're going to do it or I'm going to kick you in the head. He's like, his choice is yours. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and come to the thing. And I was so terrified. I told Jason, I was like, hey, man, I was like, will you please be my partner? Because I was so nervous about the whole thing. And like 2 weeks before, he puts in his notice that he's leaving the gym. And it was like, you couldn't wait. Like, you couldn't wait. But, you know, the thing about it was that at the time when he left, I felt like, what's the word? Creonte. You know, he was a traitor. Like, how could you leave? Like, we started this together. We're supposed to finish it together. And, you know, he had his reasons. And, you know, he left and it was the right reasons, you know, and it was the right decision for him. Everybody has their own journey. But when he left, like, I was so upset and hurt because it was like, man, you know, how could you do this, you know? And so, like, it's funny because when I left that gym, naturally I was like, oh, I'm gonna go train with my boy. You know, it's like, because I was in between gyms. So I was like, oh, this is perfect. You know, I'll finally get to train again with my boy. This will be just like old times. And he was at an amazing gym. It was a little bit too formal for me, a little bit too rigid, if you will. And I just I didn't feel like I was the right fit, and vice versa. And again, it's a great place, nothing but great things to say about him, but it just wasn't the right fit for me.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of where I found Professor Joe and Jason, and ended up at Third Coast. But the thing that's always been unique is that even though we're super different in a lot of our views, and we train totally different, it's like, and I'll go months without seeing him or even talking to him, but it's always like, once we pick up, we just pick up. It's just like it's the coolest thing, So
that's jiu-jitsu for you, though.
Yeah.
You kind of like, normally I don't think you and I would have ever met in any other circumstance. And with the type of lifestyle I have, or I shouldn't say lifestyle, but as a police officer and the type of people I'm around on a regular basis, and his the kind of work he does and stuff he does, other than maybe a traffic infraction, I don't think we would have ever crossed paths. And through jiu-jitsu, we met a friendship, and we just started having fun training together. And there's a couple other guys too that I still talk to. Actually, I'll tell you off air. Someone hit me up the other day in the office, but it's pretty cool. It's a cool jiu-jitsu love story.
Yeah,
I like to think.
Rom-com in the works.
Yes.
Hopefully, y'all had Derek Fury on here. Maybe his next project. We can look into jiu-jitsu bromance. So
Brokeback Jitsu.
There you go.
Yeah,
I like it.
Not bad. Not
like
bad.
That was quick.
That was pretty good.
That's pretty quick, actually.
That was good for the non-English guys.
I don't know why that was the first one that came to your mind. But
it was that post, dude. Your post was right on, man.
Yeah, I couldn't help myself today.
Yeah. I didn't even read it. I was rushing around trying to get everything done, and I just didn't get on social media. And I'm like I said, I'm not the best about it. But when I do get on, I'm good about tagging everybody and everything. But I just I can only imagine what he said. I didn't even.
Oh, no, it was the image. It was all just the image.
Oh, he stole my. Yeah, I know what he did.
You know what I did?
Yeah.
So I went on his Facebook. So I was like, I'm going to post about my boy coming on the podcast. But I want to put something out there. And so I'm scrolling trying to find a cool picture of us that I look good.
Never mind, we've got 1,000 pictures of each other.
Number one thing is I got to look good. So I got to find one where I look good. So it's taking a minute. And anyway, so I come across. Did Forrest make that one of you?
No, one of my training buddies, his name's Ron Waldo. He actually made that for me a few years back.
So it's already got his face on it.
Oh,
that's like a real famous jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, it's right? Vanderlei Silva and Shogun. Yeah, that's the original picture.
So yeah, you're the Shogun who was positioned. So his face is already on there, but he didn't. But Vanderlei's was still on there, and I was like, wait a minute. Let me see if I can. Cause I haven't done my clip art in a while, but I was like, let me see if I still got the app. Yeah, I still got it. Let me see if I can put this together real quick. So it's not like the best artwork, but I thought it
conveys the message, because he did say as long as there's no eye contact, no rules are being broken.
That's right.
So
no eye contact.
If there's no eye contact.
By the way, to this day, one of my favorite things when I'm in jiu-jitsu is the guy that I purposely will give me eye contact in a row. I don't even have to submit him, but he just becomes so weirdly awkward because I'll tell him, don't look away. Just let it happen. Just right here, 5 minutes. You want to distract somebody's game, look deep into their soul.
Or you want to get them fired up. I did that to some guy not that long ago. I was just like, shh, don't fight it. Shh. Man, I lit a fuse. He's like, He was like, no, we're not going to let this happen. I don't know if something's happened to that guy before, if he's been to prison or something. I don't know, but he just was like, no, not again. So, yeah, I guess it depends on the person you get.
So I was going to ask you guys, and I know you have a background in it as well. Like, I was thinking about this because 2007 till now, jiu-jitsu is different from when Jason and I started. Like, we learned differently.
Yeah.
You had two options. You either got your ass kicked daily, and your option was either quit or learn and get better. But there wasn't there wasn't anything else. It wasn't like, and at the gym we first started, if you asked the higher belt for help, the response was always, just pay for a private. Why don't you pay for a private? Nobody would help you.
That'd be purple belt up.
Wow.
That wasn't even talking about a black belt.
Yeah, and that was the purple belts. Yeah, purple belts would
Oh,
constantly tell us to pay for a private because they weren't going to help you
Some
otherwise.
people paid blue belts for privates.
Okay, I didn't know any, but I was a white belt.
Anyway,
I did pay for a blue belt private, but it seemed like a good idea at the time. But
you never know because, like we've said before, the blue belt could be
there's
way
a whole
better.
story behind
turns
this
out
blue
this
belt,
guy
too.
was not one of those guys. But like, we started off in an environment where it was very much about survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
You got your butt kicked every day. You couldn't ask for help, like I said. and you didn't have much of a choice other than to either quit or get better. And my whole thing was, I was thinking about that, how we started and how it is now, and just kind of the changes, because I was going to ask you specifically, because I know for me, like one of the things that I've noticed is the lower belts now, they're very entitled to be entitled. And what I mean by that is, it seems to me like one of the biggest things that I've noticed is the newer generation, because it's become such a business. Yeah. They're catering to the lower belts, of course, because everybody wants to grow their business, and you can't treat people like you did in 2007.
Right.
But at the same time, it's almost it's creating this culture I've seen firsthand where people don't know their place. And I know that sounds kind of like, where are you going with that? And I don't mean to be like, oh, because I'm a black belt, you should know your place.
I think I've got the older history, and then
so
we'll transition into your history, which is more modern. So when you go way further back than 2007,
okay,
we'll talk about that later.
Yeah,
it was down there. It wasn't like the same structure here, where you go, like, oh, I want to pay whatever, $100, $200, $300 a month and things of that nature. You kind of had to go through a little bit of hazing or a gauntlet to be accepted. And so you had to kind of prove yourself, not necessarily that you had jiu-jitsu skill, but you had the right mindset.
And the right heart,
or that you had the right heart, that you had some athletic ability, that you had some potential. You kind of had to prove that. Once you proved that, it was really more of like donations to the school. Mm-hmm. So there was not really a customer relationship.
Right.
Does that make sense? Seller-buyer relationship. That didn't really exist. And then you don't ask the higher belts for help. Fuck no. I mean, you can. You might do it once, but you learn real quick. No.
They're going to show you something.
You learn, like usually you're assigned to somebody that is either at the highest end of your belt or maybe the low end of the next belt, the next rank. And that's kind of your buddy. And that's who you deal with the most of the time. Now, everybody mixes and everything, kind of like what would be an open mat now. Mm-hmm. So you still mix and match, but basically a lot of your stuff where you learn is going to be off of one person, where you learn your foundations and your basics. And they want that person to help pull you up. Now, they've got theirs as well, and that tree goes up. So it's more of like a mentorship program, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
To give it a modern deal. Mentorship, I don't think existed. I don't think that term existed back then, but
that's basically what it was, right?
Yeah. And then then it started to advance in, and then I'll say in the world of Taekwondo, which is ahead of, in the business way ahead of Jiu-Jitsu. Oh yeah. The second you create that buyer-seller agreement, you enable entitlement. I am paying you to teach me something, not to hurt me, not to bully me, and those are all misconceptions, because you're not hurting them. I mean, in Jiu-Jitsu, you get thrown in the fucking ocean. You swim or drown. Swim or drown. That's so much of how you learn, because you cannot explain what it feels like to be choked. Try. You can't. There are no words to explain that, so you've got to feel it. Well, when you feel it, then you got to learn how to get out of it. And that way to get out of it is a little bit different for everybody. There's sort of a base technique, but you know this. Everybody's kind of got a little bit of a different shoulder move or turn or way that they can kind of position themselves out of it based on their bone structure, their arm lengths and weight and how they deal with stuff. So I think that's where I'm going to pass it to you, is right when you introduce buyer-seller, you bring entitlement.
I like that. Makes sense. Yeah.
Well, so I agree. I agree, and I think you were kind of hitting on it. So when we started, we'll take Houston for example, because I remember looking for schools. There was not a lot of schools. There was like maybe 3 schools, legitimate schools in the whole entire Houston area. So you didn't have a lot of options of places to go. So the place you went, if you wanted to keep learning, you had to deal with the ass kickings. Like that was just you had to go get your ass kicked every day. Yeah. It was just part of the process. Nowadays, jiu-jitsu's grown so much. We're a little bit where Taekwondo was, which makes me nervous, because you have the McDojo effect. Yeah. And I'm really worried about that. And I think we already see it in some schools. And then you, without even naming them, you could come up with a couple. Right. And where it is, there's this coddling of the new student, because we don't want the new student to leave. Right. I even got told this by a black belt at Brian's school when I first started there. It was a different black belt that was there teaching. And there was a white belt there, and he got spazzy on me. So let me ask you a question. What do you do with a spazzy white belt?
Oh, you teach him real quick.
Settle.
Well, I was a purple belt at the time. So I did what I had always learned to do.
Knee ride.
I knee rode the shit out of him. I surfed him. I surfed him like a Hawaiian wave. And guess what? It calmed down. But of course, this black belt looks at me and comes up to me later and says, listen, Jason, says, don't go so hard on those guys. We want them to come back. And I was looking at him, and one, he's Brazilian, so I thought it was really weird.
Yeah.
But two, I was like, what do you mean? Like, that's so bizarre to me, because the whole point is I wasn't hurting him to hurt him. He's spazzy. I got to teach him to calm down and get him to not hurt me also. But yeah, to kind of teach a lesson, calm down. And which is what happened to me. Like, I can't even. Yeah. There's been so many ass kickings, I can't even remember. I don't remember them anymore. There were so many. And but it was part of the process. And I didn't complain about it ever. It was just the way it was. But I had no other options. So now you get these white belts now, and they go, man, they're freaking mean to me at that school. And then there's a school down the street. No, we don't beat you guys up. We're not about that. We want to teach you. We want you to learn. Jiu-jitsu is for everyone. Blah blah blah, and they bring him in under that kind of guys, and maybe they don't. Maybe they coddle him, and then this isn't so bad, and they stay there. And I think the guys who want to really are legitimately looking to learn jiu-jitsu, they're not going to be scared away by ass kicking. So, like, we weren't. It was like, fuck, I got to get back in there because I got to get better so I can do that to somebody else. And but yeah, I think just the growth of jiu-jitsu is what's breeding some of this coddling of white belts.
Well, it's a business, So if you take Third Coast, just take Third Coast, right? You're there,
right?
It's a commercial spot. You're effectively, it's not right off the highway, but it's right off the highway,
right?
Because there's a like a feeder road almost. It's a feeder to the feeder, but it's right on the highway. So that's a relatively prime location. Well, you have to pay rent.
Yeah.
So you're like, well, I want a good location so people see me, so they come, but then you got to pay that overhead's. I mean, it's no joke. So then you've got that fine balance between, okay, well, how do I take care of the people so I have more people, but yet actually instruct or teach this art? Crap, and now you've got to play. You got to play the yo-yo to figure it out.
Well, and I get it. It's hard. Like when we had Brian on, we were talking about how difficult it was for him to get that business going. I know with Jason and Joe.
Yeah.
Man, you were there at the beginning too, basically. Yeah. And it was really hard. And it ain't easy. You're not getting rich running a martial arts business. Very few people do.
Yeah.
You're hoping to make a living out of it and do something you love to do, I think, is what I would think most business owners' goals are when they open a jiu-jitsu academy. But there's that weird little fine line. I guess it's just through commercialization. I think it's just the growth of jiu-jitsu. It was going to happen.
I think I knew like when things were changing. Excuse me. For me was I was a purple belt, and we were teaching lunch class, and my partner was a blue belt at the time, and Jason and I would I was always a dummy, and then like the next day we would show things because we spent a lot of time early on together training, and he showed a move, and I'd seen it, and I was pretty and at the purple belt level, your mind is always just kind of thinking. You're always trying to innovate. Okay, you're chaining things together, and how do I get from here to here to here? How do I incorporate this into my already existing game plan? But your mind's constantly going. You're already seeing a move, and you're already thinking how many different attacks you can see out of it or the transitions. So I went first, and I was doing the technique, and obviously I modified it, and I was kind of tweaking it, and I was familiar with the movement already, and I never forget it. This blue belt looks up at me and says, aggressively, by the way, he says, do you want me to tell you what you're doing wrong? And I had to stop and just process what he said, because I remember as a white belt or lower belt, like, you didn't ask a higher belt to roll, period. That's just the culture that we came up in. It was a respect thing. And you sure as shit didn't tell a higher belt, you want me to tell you what's wrong with what you're doing? And at that moment, I remember when he said it, I kind of like, I paused, and it threw me off. It was one of those things that was so out of the blue that my brain couldn't even process fast enough. Like, did he just really say that to me? So I was like, no, I'm good. Thanks. I was trying to be polite. It's a business. We're talking about that. Don't want to lose anybody. I want my training partners. A few minutes go by. I do it again. Same way. And now he's annoyed with me. He's like, look, if you want me to tell you what you're doing wrong, I can tell you.
Oh.
And I'll never forget that moment, because I remember I kind of looked down. I looked down on my belt. I kind of grabbed my purple belt, and I was like, huh. I was like, no, I think I've got it. I was like, I've seen this move. I was like, I'm just kind of trying to modify different things. And he just kind of gave me that look of disgust, like, whatever, you're not doing it right. And luckily I got to roll with that guy in that same class, and that was the first and last time he ever said anything crazy to me like that again. But you know, it was kind of funny because that presents like a whole nother conversation where it's like we got our butts kicked all the time at our first gym.
Yeah.
And the problem was that we would get beat up for doing wrong things or things that were not correct with etiquette, but nobody was telling us why we were getting beat up. So you didn't know, Jason. Like, you were just getting your ass kicked and you knew when you were getting an ass whooping, because you would get your ass whooped on a daily, but there were certain ass whoopings that you take where they were nasty and mean, and you were just like, what the hell did I do? And then somebody would come and whisper in your ear, hey man, I heard that you said this or you said that. I used to joke with him all the time because he was a blue belt way before I ever got a blue belt, and we would roll together. And every now and then when I would submit him, I had this ongoing joke with him and some of the core guys that we all started together, and everybody belted up except me because I wouldn't test.
Yeah.
And I had an ongoing joke where I would submit him and I'd say, hey, so how does this work now? Do you give me your belt because I submitted you, or do I go talk to the instructor and he gives me a new one? I was like, I just want to know what should I do here? How do I get my belt? Yeah. And it was just a funny thing because this is my brother, you know, and I could joke with him and nothing's off limits with me and him. And then one day I'm rolling with this guy. I'll give him a shout out, Chris Columbus.
I can remember this. I remember this.
And Chris catches me in an arm lock, and I mean, like an idiot, because I'm a no-gi guy, I go to just try to yank and muscle my way out of it, and it just locks out the elbow, and it pops, and he takes it all the way down to the ground, and I'm just screaming, tapping, right? He gets up, doesn't shake my hand, and says, yeah, he's like, maybe next time you'll watch what you're saying about the higher belts. Oh, but that was the first time. That was the first time that someone beat my ass, but then explained to me, hey, man, maybe I'm not saying it to you directly, but you don't do that. Yeah. And that was one of the first and only times that I can remember that at least I took that popping of the arm and remember thinking, oh, okay, this is great between me and my bro right here and some of my other core training buddies. Yeah. But it doesn't matter because other people don't find it funny, and you have to have that respect on the mats. And it was a great lesson that I learned as a white belt that, hey, even though it's all good and I can tell them to in closed doors all day, not everybody has that sense of humor, and you can't get away with saying certain things. But it was like, it was very rare that somebody actually shared with you, hey man, don't do this. It's not cool. You know, that's not proper. You know, we don't do this. We don't do that. So the culture became very much about whooping somebody's ass or getting your ass whooped, but where was the explanation as to why it happened? And so, you know, my wife and I debate about this all the time because she's a brown belt, and sometimes, you know, she feels like everybody goes super hard at her, but not the other girls. And I'm kind of like, well, you've got a bigger target on your back because you're one of the higher belts, you know? But at the same time, it's frustrating for her when she sees the guys going balls to the wall on her, and then they're flowing with the other girls. And sometimes, you know, she gets roughed up a little bit, and then she'll turn it up, and then she'll tell me after the fact, and I'm like, well, did you talk to that person? You know, did you tell them, hey, you know, you don't have to use all strength, you don't have to do this? And she's like, no. And then it's like, well, you know, that's an opportunity. You should have stopped right then and there, and you should have said, hey, you know, I'm not going with you 100%. You don't need to go back at me like that. And it's so easy for me to have that discussion with her as her husband and as a black belt. Yeah. But then when it happens to me, even I'm guilty of it, where it's like, I should have probably said something at the time. But it's difficult because we didn't come up like that. You know, nobody really told us much. We just...
Well, a lot of it, it's all enrolling. Two things on that. Jiu-jitsu's... Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is interesting in the sense that it is probably the only... I'm saying this without putting deep thought into it. Probably the only martial art that it really doesn't matter if you're a guy or a girl. Your belt's your belt.
Right.
If you have a brown belt, you should be able to hang with brown belts. Now, granted, people aren't stupid. So if you're 5'2" and 100 pounds and you're going against somebody who's 6'4" and 300 pounds, clearly there is a difference, right? I mean, they're not that stupid. But in the sense that if you have two relatively similar weighted people, it doesn't matter. Your belt's your belt. You don't see the gender.
Yeah, I agree with that. Does that make sense? For the most part, I think there's differences, obviously, in physical strength, and men are just physically stronger. For the most part.
Absolutely, yeah.
I've rolled a couple of black belt females. Don't fucking matter. They'll rip you. They'll rip right through you like you're nothing. Like, I don't care how strong you think you are.
Yeah.
But, and a side note on, because you brought up Chris Columbus. He's a good dude, by the way.
Yeah, he's a really.
He
good
was
guy.
just I think he also took jiu-jitsu very seriously. I think has he gotten his black belt yet?
I don't know. I
know he's
haven't checked in
married.
on him,
He's got at least one kid. Like you keep up with people through Facebook.
Yeah.
And I actually saw him at the academy not that long ago when we had a seminar, and he was a brown belt then. Chris, really good dude. But because I used to train with Chris a lot actually.
Yeah.
I think that's probably where that came from. Because Chris and I we partnered a lot, especially getting ready for tournaments and stuff. Him and I would train a lot. There,
he probably looked at you like you're his little brother too. You know,
he probably didn't realize the relationship you and I had, because that gym, that was elite. That elite, it's a really large academy.
Yeah.
And even at that time, it was pretty big. And like I remember, if you trained at lunch, you didn't even know the people at nighttime.
Yeah, that's
and if
true.
you trained at night, you didn't know the people at lunch.
Oh,
So when you
wow.
cross trained, like if you went and trained at night, you wouldn't even recognize the people there.
Yeah.
And it had that scary tournament feeling all of a sudden because you were rolling with people you've never seen. It's like, hey, I trained at your gym with you, but they didn't know you.
But they looked at you different because you trained at a different time. It was almost like you trained at another gym.
Yeah.
It was really bizarre.
We did effectively almost.
Well, this is the only gym I've ever seen this at, because every academy I've been at since then, like people train different times, and so if you train at lunch, they've seen you before, they know who you are.
Yeah.
And I bet you that had a little bit to do with that, because I think Chris trained mostly at lunch. That's what I remember training with him most of the time. And anyway, yes,
but that was a great lesson, for me as a young guy, as a young guy. That's funny, but as a
young jiu-jitsu practitioner.
Yes, like as a lower belt, that was one of the most valuable things I could have learned, because it humbled me. It taught me respect. It taught me that, okay, certain things, again, in closed doors are fine, but not in a public place like this where we're all here to do one thing. People take jiu-jitsu very seriously. Or let me back up. There's that certain percentage of people that this is their passion and they love it, and when they feel like, okay, this guy's disrespecting me or disrespecting my training partner or our gym, they take it upon themselves, because they call it the enforcer, and whether it's warranted or not, that's how they see themselves. But again, it's like it's good. It's one of those things where I can honestly say that I'm extremely grateful to that day and to Chris, because he was one of the first and only people that actually put me in my place, and I learned a lot from it. But like you say, like now it's just that finding that hard balance where, we had a recent conversation where there's a lot of different thoughts of how to pro with lower belts. Some people say, my professor will say, roll right above their skill level. Yeah. Other people will say, just focus on your escapes. Let these guys catch you, and, you've got enough jiu-jitsu where you should be able to escape no problems. Professor Bryan said something that stuck with me a few years back. He said, you as a lower belt get to dictate the dance. I'm sure I'm messing up his quote, but basically he was making the point that you get to dictate how this roll is going to go. If you want to go balls to the wall, I'll happily oblige you. If you want to be cool, then we can do that as well. But it was one of the things that kind of really made sense to me, that, okay, I'll let you dictate this. But the problem with that is that the lower belts, they don't recognize your energy. They don't have that sensitivity. So they don't understand that I'm going to try to work with you. I'm going to be cool, because they want to go balls to the wall, all the time. At that, and Jason will tell you, when you start off, your growth is only measured in taps. Everybody will tell you, don't worry about taps. Don't worry about. Every single person that starts jiu-jitsu is going to go home that night, and they're going to measure their victories on who they tapped out and who they didn't. Yeah. And if they catch you as a higher belt, oh, you best believe they're going in their diary that night. Dear die. Tonight, I caught Jason with an armbar. They're going to talk about it, And it's worse now because we have social media. Yeah. And so, that's just how it was. And we had a long conversation, because I was telling him, I was like, let me make sure I'm understanding this. So this whole philosophy of rolling with the lower belt, feeding him, and escaping, it's a great idea. But what if this guy just came out of college and he was a D1 wrestler and he's just yoked out and he doesn't know he doesn't understand how much leverage he has when he gets a hold of my arm or my neck. I've got jiu-jitsu, but at the same time, it's like, if he goes so fast and hard that I can't get out of that, I'm not going to work tomorrow. I'm not going to feed my family because he popped my knee, he popped my neck or my elbow or whatever the case may be. So I struggle with that. You know, I feel like I don't really want to put myself in that kind of position with some of these guys that don't really understand it, because the idea of you want me to take care of you, but you're not going to take care of me in return, that doesn't sit well with me, because they don't understand that sensitivity. Yeah. And Jason had a really good point that he made with, I guess, from Chris from the seminar. You were talking about how
Chris Howder.
Yeah, you've earned the right to be selective on the people that you train with. You know, when you get to a certain level.
At a certain level, yeah.
But that's hard for me, because I'm the guy that, you know, I know certain black belts that if you're a visitor, they won't go near you, because they don't know you. They don't know what your game is. They don't know if you're going to try to hurt them. I'm the opposite. I'm the guy that's so competitive. Like, I want to, let's go roll with this guy. Who's this guy, you know? And it doesn't always work out well, because sometimes you get these guys that are super strong and their game's a little bit dirty and things happen. But I feel like I never want to not be the guy that rolls with somebody, because especially if it's a new body. And I understand the other philosophy too, where I'm not rolling with you because I don't know you. Yeah. But it's just that balance that I don't, you know, it's hard now that, especially now that I'm a black belt, because it's kind of like, well, logic states that you've got enough jiu-jitsu, you should never be worried about rolling with anybody. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I think 90% of us, we're hobbyists. You know, I've got a family, and that's what's important to me. And if I get injured, are you going to pay my bills? You know, exactly. I heard Keith Owens has a thing where and I might be quoting the wrong guy, but something to the effect, if you injure another student, you're responsible for his bills, and that's kind of how they have it. And they keep injuries at a very low rate because they're holding you accountable. Hey, if you couldn't control yourself enough, now this guy's out of work, go ahead and pick up his bills now, you know? I'm
trying to remember the name of the school. As you're saying this, I'm trying to remember the school that's in Phoenix. Okay. It'll come to me. In their fees is built-in insurance for every person for someone else, general liability insurance.
Oh, that's pretty interesting. That's actually really
so
smart.
Now you got to remember, is general liability insurance, I think it's up to $1 million or $2 million or whatever, in a combat arts is less than $500 a year.
Okay.
Not a month, a year is less than $500. So if you incorporate that into somebody's fees, that's really not much more a month.
Mm-hmm. That's the way to do it.
It's a nice little insurance policy.
Right. Yeah. And so it's a deal that if someone does get injured, exactly what you're saying is other people are taken care of.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
That's kind of I like that. Yeah.
That's a really. I'm surprised more gyms don't incorporate something like that.
Because the gym itself has to have it to operate.
Right.
Does that make sense? But they're not responsible for student with student. And so then what you do is with the students is you kind of give them, it's a little bit of play. There's a little bit of mess to it, because if you have two non-black belts or two non-professors or two non-instructors going with each other, you kind of have to falsely label them as instructors to be able to get the insurance. So there's a little bit of a little lie, but you're protecting everybody with that little bit of a lie.
Oh, I like it.
Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, no, everybody should do that. Really cool.
Something you brought up, and you know, as far as I never thought about it till I got my black belt, and I never had a problem rolling with anybody till now. And not that I have problems rolling with people, but now all of a sudden I think I'm opposite with you on this. When someone new walks into my gym, I'm not just gonna roll with them. Like, I don't know the guy. I literally feel like I don't know the guy, and I know that he sees that black belt. And I remember how I was. I didn't see a person. I saw a black belt.
Yeah.
Right? And it took me a long time to figure out there was different levels of black belts. It took me a long time to figure out how you even roll with a black belt properly. I don't even know if I ever really truly learned until I was probably a brown belt. But I don't just roll with anybody, and it's specifically because I don't know who you are. I don't know what kind of mindset you have, and I don't know what you're going to try to do.
Yeah.
So I know I won't roll with people I don't know right away. Like, my first time I went to open mat after putting my black belt on, and you know our open mat is nuts, right? It's a lot of. Yeah. Dude, I was like, I told Lisa,
stay with me the whole time, babe.
I said, I am only training with you today. So we're going to drill, and I might roll with you. I'm not rolling with anybody else. And I'm not kidding, because that's how I felt. Like, I don't trust anybody. Like, I don't trust anybody right now. And it's not about not trusting my jiu-jitsu. It's just a little protection until I get to know you. You know, if you're in my academy, I mean, I'm not saying I wouldn't roll with anybody that walks in. I don't mean it quite like that.
Right.
So a new student comes in, or someone comes in from another gym, and they're changing to gyms. I'll roll with them, and I'll be very careful and guarded in how I roll. But just randomly, there is that thought.
that's one thing that's pretty unique to jiu-jitsu. Okay, so even take judo, even take sambo, even take taekwondo, take all of those. There's always assholes. Okay, so let's cover that.
Right.
There's always an asshole here or there. So that's just a small number. In jiu-jitsu is it happens the least that there's ever a conversation or there's ever an understanding. Like, hey, it's 75. Going 75%.
Does it ever work out? Though?
Nobody's 75%. Yeah.
And it's just because I know, you know, in some of the other arts and in Muay Thai and stuff like that, it's just the deal.
Yeah.
And somebody starts to get a little rough, you back up, hey, 75, cool, got it, okay. And it's just because you're going to play that 75. You know, does that make sense? You get popped,
what always
you have
happens to me,
reaction.
it never works out. Hey, we need to slow it down a little bit. It's like, oh, you want to amp it up? You want to amp it up? Okay,
Yeah,
I can amp it up a little more. And then they go, oh, you want to amp it up? I got into almost a near fight with a guy one time, and he kept amping it up, and so then I would pick it up a little bit more. And then he would pick it up a little bit more. Then I would pick it. And it got to the end where I wasn't shit talking. He was shit talking. So, well, what, you think you're athletic? I'm athletic too. I can do that too. And it got so bad, like people stopped and were like looking. And finally the clock went out. And I was just like, I just got up and left the mat.
Yeah.
Like I didn't even shake his hand. I was like, dude, that was nuts. Like, I'm sorry that, and like he hurt himself. Because I got him in a submission. I got him in I think it was a bicep cutter. A tied bicep cutter.
Illegal.
Jesus Christ, Mr. IBJJ.
I'm just telling you. I mean,
You're competing competition.
Yeah, you're competing like in 3 days, aren't you?
Well, this was months ago. So, anyway.
Oh, yeah. Still illegal, though.
Look at you.
I'm just saying, go ahead.
This is the guy that didn't put a gi on for 4 years.
I mean, that's neither here nor there.
So, anyway. I got him in a tied bicep cutter, and I know it was fucking hurting him because I saw his face.
Yeah,
and you know what he does? He ends up ripping it out.
Yes.
Oh. I know your arm was fucked for at least a month after that because that's the worst way to get out of that thing. Instead of just tapping, he had tapped. He was, and you know what? That shit happened to me the other day. As a matter of fact,
you got caught with one?
No, I caught this other guy in a bicep cutter, nasty one, and he powered out of it too. And I know his arm was jacked because I saw his face. I'm like.
I don't like
right.
this. Is okay.
Just tap.
Maybe I'm unique with this. Tap. I don't give a shit. Give me some tap. Okay,
what is Gary Tonin? Did you read that
don't
Gary
care.
Tonin says he taps like 15 times on an average training
no,
session?
I didn't hear that.
Yeah, he put that out there that he will tap up to 15 times on a regular.
You know, in jiu-jitsu they always talk about the ego.
Yeah.
You know, everyone will tell you that the mats or jiu-jitsu's got it's the biggest douchebag filter. If you're a douchebag, you're not going to make it because you're either going to adjust and adapt and go with that culture that you're in now with your jiu-jitsu family, or you're gonna quit because your ego can't take getting beat by a 90-pound girl and you're just some gorilla, right? But it's just kind of one of like, it's amazing to me that you say that, you know, in these other martial arts, if hey, we say 75, someone's gonna back up and be like, hey, we agreed. Not in jiu-jitsu. It always starts off like that, you know. And my favorite is the guy that's like, hey, listen, I got a bad shoulder, I've got a bad hip, my elbow, my neck, man, let's just go light. Okay, no problem. And then you start going, and as soon as they get into a dominant position, we're at the world championships. I'm like, hold up. Then when I get you on top or whatever, I get you in a dominant position, it's like, whoa, wait, remember my neck. Well, wait a minute here. So you're only injured when you're in a bad position. It's like, that's the guy, those are the guys that they're hilarious to me because, and it's like, are we gonna agree to this agreement or we're not? But in the history of jiu-jitsu, I think like if, you know, one of my good training partners right now, he's got a back injury. And so when, you know, he's been coming in and if we just kind of flow and then just drill, but that's because it's like we're both higher belts and it's very upfront, you know. The whole injury thing, as far as like, you know, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, guys have kind of that ego where there's two things. They'll tell you, most coaches will tell you, hey, let your training partners know that you have an injury so they don't go after it. Yeah. My original coach that I got my blue belt from, he was of a different mindset. He was always like, train with your injuries because injuries will breed evolution. You have to learn how to roll with not using this arm because it got cranked on and or whatever the case may be. And I remember he would do it all the time. And I remember thinking, that's bullshit. That's some black belt trick because I can't go in there and do that. You know, like I'm going to get hurt. In fact, when I got my purple belt on a Saturday, came back on that Monday and got my shoulder completely blown out.
Ooh.
And of course, being a guy's guy, I didn't go for 6 months. You know, I didn't go to the doctor. So by the time I went, I had scar tissue from the tear, and then now I was going to have more scar tissue from surgery.
Yeah.
And came out of surgery on a Wednesday, came back to lunch class on a Monday, pulled my arm out of the sling, and got on the mat with the biggest white belts in the class. Now, my thought process was, if I can survive with these monsters that have no control, I'll be okay with some of the other higher belts. My professor found out, was furious with me, and that was the time that he yanked me and said, okay, you want to come and train? Fine. You're not staying off the mats? Fine. You're going to be here tonight, and you're going to help me teach. And he actually put me on the path to becoming an instructor and helping out. It was the greatest injury probably that could have happened to me, because I don't know that I would have evolved as much as I did. But like that whole injury thing, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know how you are, but when I have an injury, I don't usually tell somebody, because in my mind, I feel like it's my job to protect my injury. Because the minute, Jason, you tell somebody, hey man, I've got a bad shoulder, you can just see they go like, now it's like they're rolling with their little sister, and they're not really going. Well, the guys that are the good guys, you know, the guys that actually care about you and they're going to take care of you, all of a sudden it affects their role. And I'm always of the mindset that, look, most of us are hobbyists. I know you probably had a shit day at work. I don't know what your home life is like. This is a stress reliever, and I don't want to take that opportunity away from you. I know you came here to get something out of this, and rolling is a big part of what we do. It's the biggest stress reliever. So I don't share that information normally, because I see it. I've seen it many times when I share that with people. They just they start to close off, and their game just changes. They're not going hard at you anymore. So I feel like it's my job. If I make a decision that I'm going to be on this mat with an injury, then it's my responsibility to protect myself and tap early if I will. Like I said,
I think that's kind of it. Is it's like my stuff, as I'm sharing the rehab with you with my shoulder, you know, coming in, because I'm going to get in there hopefully within a couple of weeks.
I've listened to almost every one of your podcasts, and I hear that same line. I'm gonna make a video of you saying that. Hey,
please do,
and I'm just gonna loop it, because
send it to me.
It's been a couple times I've heard it.
Send it to me.
But you're rehabbing right now.
I mean, hurt, like literally. It's like, that's it. I can't go any more than that.
Wow.
Can't. Doesn't hurt. Can't do it.
On a side note, if you didn't have those big muscles, that probably wouldn't be a problem.
Fucking wish, because the other side's larger and I'm good. So I wish, but I agree with you, and I share with him just because I know, you know. Otherwise, I think it depends. Ultimately, it depends, but you keyed on the very end there. Tap early.
Yeah.
Tap early. Leave the fucking ego at the door.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
The whole
That's
deal.
what we're supposed to do anyway.
I don't care. Like, even if they're and you're just body's on my shoulder weird, I did tap, get the fuck off.
Yeah.
Like, even if you're doing nothing, you're just changing position. No, tap. Okay, well, too much. That's cool. Like, I don't know why that's bad for people. It's just so many times that damn ego gets in there.
Ego. You know, but I do the same philosophy. I don't like. You know, you always have, and actually, it's weird. People ask so much. They'll be like, "Hey, is anything hurt?" Which is a cool thing to ask. It's not wrong to ask, but I'm never like, yeah, watch out for this. I never say that. And you know, when you've been training so long, like a lot of shit hurts. Like, you always got issues.
It's a loaded question. Like, do you want me to really list everything that hurts?
I've got issues all over my body, to be honest with you. But I never, you know, but if I have something I've aggravated, we'll just say that there's something I've aggravated. I never tell anybody. The only thing I always say, like, trust me, if it hurts, I'll tap. Yeah. That's all I ever say. If it hurts, I'll tap, which I will. And I've been there where I'm like in a spot where I know I have an injury there that's about to get pressured on. I'll just, let's tap.
Yeah.
I don't, it's not that. And I can't say I'm completely egoless, because it's not true. Anybody who trains jiu-jitsu says, oh, I have no ego. They lie. We all have ego. I used to call it like your blue belt ego, your purple belt ego, your brown belt ego. And there's a black belt ego. Yeah. And, you know, like when you're blue belt ego, well, man, those white belt's not going to tap my ass. I'll tap to anybody else but a white belt. Yeah. When you get that purple belt, I'm not tapping to a blue belt. Yeah. I remember when I got my brown belt and I ended up tapping to a purple belt like the next week. I was so mad. Like, I went home devastated. Like, why do I even have this thing if I had to tap to a purple belt? And it's that brown belt ego, you know? Yeah. And we all carry it with us. You know, it's really, I think that's one of the hardest things to do is to, like, really put that away and accept that tap, but it's something you said too. You know they're going to go home and write it in their diary, and
or put you on Facebook.
That's happened. It's not too often, but it's happened.
But that's the thing. We gotta teach that ego shit early.
Oh, it's hard.
Early. Because like this, like open mat or something, we get to roll or some kind of stuff in the future, right? I'm literally, if my shoulders, I'm like, my shoulders fucking with me, I might be tapping early there.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean, to me, it doesn't mean go light. It doesn't mean change anything. I just don't want you to get the wrong deal, like to be aware of it, to be more conscious of me tapping.
Yeah.
Because I don't want, again, you're just sliding around and you get my shoulder where and I tap. I want you to be ready for that.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So it's
No,
more
it does.
that as opposed to don't go light.
Yeah, and see, and we can have this conversation. It makes perfect sense to us. But for some reason, when you actually verbalize that to your partner, it puts them in a different frame of mind. It's almost like, oh man, I can't really roll with this guy now. He's on the, he's on the injured reserve list here. It's like, it's almost like you're ruining his night. So it's kind of like, like that's why for me, Forrest always told us, don't stop training because you're injured. Just evolve and figure out how can I continue to train without re-aggravating this injury. And like I said, for the longest time, I thought that was some black belt magic that doesn't work. It only works for him because he's a black belt and other black belts. But it wasn't until I started realizing, okay, all right, let's look at this as a challenge. How can I still be on the mats, still be competitive, but still be safe? Yeah. And like I just gave you that terrible example. I went about it in the wrong way. Let me find the biggest, goofiest, spazziest white belt, pull my arm out of a sling and go for it. But again, it was what made sense to me in my mind. In my mind, I felt like if I can survive with these big, goofy, spazzy white belts, then I'll be okay to deal with anybody else because everybody else is going to be way more controlled. So my mindset was of that this should be okay. Wasn't the greatest plan ever. So
that's a terrible
small white belt.
Yeah, that is so you.
Yeah, well, it is.
Man,
okay.
That is so you.
Relationships and jiu-jitsu.
Ooh, it's a good
meaning.
So your wife is a brown belt. Okay.
So I'm just gonna tell this. I'm gonna say this right now. I saw a video where they were talking about why people quit at blue belt, and one of the things he touched on, because the video was specifically about blue belts, because I don't know if you know, but that's the highest percentage of the people that quit in jiu-jitsu. Well, one of the things he touched on during that same video was that he said if your significant other doesn't support you in this journey, you will never make it. Not only will you probably not make it past blue, but you will definitely never make it to a black belt.
Or you get divorced.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but I know that Jason has experience with that as well. In the past he had someone that wasn't supportive. Mm-hmm. My wife, we literally started at the same gym. Mm-hmm. We were there an entire year before we even knew of each other, and we just happened to bump into each other in a competition class. The greatest thing you can have in jiu-jitsu is a partner that trains with you, and I'll tell you why. When we have arguments at home, we go to the gym because we're both at the gym. We're there, and when we get that rolling, everything that's bothering us, if you're mad about this, you're mad about that, it is the greatest marriage counselor ever, because in these 5 minutes, you do what you have to do. Yeah. And at the end, I'm going to slap your hand. I'm going to give you a hug, and I'm going to forget whatever the problem was. And I'm going to respect you, not just as my training partner, but my wife. Yeah. And so for me, it's like, there's no way I would have made it to a black belt without my wife, Holly. Purple belt. One night, you think as a purple belt is a funny belt because it's the funnest belt, but that's where you get a bunch of injuries. Yeah. But it's one of those belts that you almost always feel very strong. You're kind of in that middle ground. So, you can dominate the whites and the blues, but you don't really have that high of expectation when you go against the higher belts because you're still kind of in the middle. But you feel good and you feel strong. At least I did. And I remember one day I go to the gym and my professor I don't know if he was on a Red Bull that day or what he was working, but he ran through me like I felt like day one, like I had no jiu-jitsu, and just destroyed me. And I remember going home and I was devastated, threw my stuff on the ground, told my wife I'm done. And it wasn't ego though. I didn't quit because I was destroyed because my ego was destroyed. But I felt like I let my team down. I felt like I let my professor down because he put so much time into me. He took me under his wing as a blue belt. And for me not to be able to even perform or be competitive in that role where he just annihilated me, I felt bad. I felt like I let him down. I should be better at this. I should have gave him a little bit more of a fight. But, you know, one thing I learned after that incident was, like Jason said, there's levels to this. And there's people that have been black belts. You know, he's been a black belt longer than I've been training. And so it's kind of like, when you understand those things, then it's like, okay, that makes sense. Any day that he feels like he wants to turn it up, I joke about it with friends. I'm like, you know, Brian, my Professor Joe, my coach Jason, I don't want to get graphic here, but at the end of the day, like, they could literally hold me down and put their dick in my butt, and there would be nothing I could do about it. There would be nothing I could do because they're just that good, you know?
Yeah.
And it's just like, it's one of those things which you have to accept it, that, hey, there's levels to this. And I'll never forget, I went home and I quit as a purple belt. Said, I'm done. You know, this is embarrassing for me. I've shamed my family. I've let the gym down. Like, I'm done. And my wife was like,
sword out.
you know, I wrote my letter, dear, you know. So, like, you know, it was just kind of one of those moments for me. And I didn't train jiu-jitsu for about a week and a half. But I was coming to JKD, and every day my eyeball was wandering. What are they doing? What are they doing over there? Yeah. And then finally, my and Holly was so encouraging, and she actually went and talked to Professor behind my back, and he pulled me to the side, and he was like, "Hey, we need to get you back on the mats," and da 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 da. But like, relationships, I can only speak from my experience that I too had a relationship prior to her that wasn't supportive, and you know, that didn't work out. And Holly is the reason that I'm a black belt today, because she sacrifices more for me to see me succeed with. She knows that she understands my passion behind this. You know, I call myself a hobbyist, and I am, and I say that because I'm not a competitor. You know, I'm not going to the tournaments. I'm not doing all that. But just because I see myself as a hobbyist, I don't think that there's anybody that loves jiu-jitsu more than I do. And Holly has always been the one right there, just, you know, pushing me and guiding me and getting me back on track whenever you have those moments where you're like, I'm done, you know. And so I think that if you've got the right person, it's the perfect thing, because now there's two things, my two loves, you know, I'm sharing them, you know, my love for my wife and my love for jiu-jitsu, and she's there with me through this journey. We started together as white belts, and you know, she was getting good, so I had to give her 2 babies to slow her down. And so that's why I got my black belt before she did. So.
Pretty diabolical.
I know, man. You know,
way to keep the upper hand.
Yeah, I have to.
Diabolical.
Let me tell you something. She was, Holly is amazing. She's got really good boxing, and she's got really good Muay Thai. And whenever we play around at the house, she's got these long legs. And when she starts hopping on that foot, and it's always in the kitchen for some reason, and she'll nail me with one of those leg kicks.
It's no joke, man. Take
down to the ground, and then there I'm safe. And then I made the mistake one time, and I was like, I got beside myself. I was like, she was like, well, come on, let's stand up. And I was like, I'm not scared, let's go. Forgot my wife is a lefty. Walked right into a left punch, buckled me. But you know, again, it's like it's those things about her that I love, and that it just keeps everything so lively between us. And you know, I wouldn't be here without her and her support, because she actually, like I said, sacrificed the most to see me get to this point. And now it's like, when she got her brown belt, she's the first brown belt female in our gym. Awesome. First one from our professor. Yeah. But now it's like the journey is different for me. Now it's like it's her turn. Yeah. You know, and now it's all about focusing on her and making sure that we get her, you know, to that next step. So
that's a cool deal.
It's neat. I've watched them since the beginning, and I remember when he first met Holly, and he definitely had like a little spark in his eye about her. And,
he's like, I'm going to the gym, assholes. I'm going. No,
he was. I remember they would go. It was a joke because him and I were besties, and we do stuff.
Oh, Yoko, the Yoko.
Yeah, we always do stuff all the time. And now all of a sudden, you know, he's going out to Denny's and shit with Holly. They send me pictures. She's like, haha, you know.
They were competitive with each other.
Like, what the fuck?
Who's getting my time?
Ronnie, what the fuck, man? And so it was like a little joke. And I've been able to kind of go along for the ride from over here, and it's been fun to watch, and it's been exciting, and I'm really glad that they've made it as far as they have and are going so strong. Yeah. And I've watched their, you know, babysat their children before and as babies, so I'm capable of doing that. And,
well, your experience.
I'm experienced. It's been fun. It's been a really fun to watch them grow together. And
I will tell you this though, Jason. It's as great as it is. There's struggles because of the husband hat and the black belt hat.
Yeah.
Recently, we had an incident where she got really frustrated with one of the higher belts, and I know all she needed was for me to be on her side.
Yeah.
But I hate buying into madness, and I feel like I understand you're upset, but there's no point in both of us being upset.
Right.
So let's talk this through. And I tried to present things to her in the glass is half full in this situation. You've identified, what this person is doing you to get you in these bad positions to submit you. And there's 3 things, and we can work on those 3 things. This is great. You've told me what the problem is, that we can work on those things.
Yeah.
But it wasn't that simple. It was like, it's the frustration. And that's the challenging part about, to talk about specifically about the relationship piece, is that sometimes it's hard to balance out. Am I your husband right now? Do you want husband advice or do you want black belt advice? Because if we're talking about jiu-jitsu, then to me, that's my black belt hat. And then I'm going to talk to you like you're a brown belt, and these are my expectations of you. And these are the things that, I don't want to hear this because this, and this. And that doesn't go over well, because in those moments, it's like she needs her husband to be supportive and to put on the husband hat. But for me, it's like,
it's a fine line.
No,
man.
we're talking about jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
It's sacred. We can't mix in the two. Like, if you want to talk about jiu-jitsu, then let's talk about jiu-jitsu and the things that we need to do to get you where you need to be. I can't just roll with you and be angry about something when we can turn this into a positive thing.
Yeah.
So that right there, I will say that's the challenge, because, you have to remember kind of your place. And at the same time, it's like, what am I supposed to do now? You want me to go avenge the family name? I got to go get this guy because, he rode with you a little bit rough here, So, I'm sure Jason has that issue too, where it's like, you hear, I'm sure you get it too, where, this guy tonight, he rode with me a little bit too hard.
Well,
and
Lisa's pretty good about, she gets it, like jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And she'll tell me like, yeah, I got kind of real hard. I didn't think it was necessary, or whatever. But it's like, it's regular mat talk. Like, it's the same conversation I may have with Ronnie. Hey, I think he kind of rolled a little bit harder than was necessary. And it's kind of there. I think the issues that I've had, first of all, I agree with you. It's a huge bonus to the relationship to share something. And I brought Lisa into jiu-jitsu when we started dating over 2 years ago. And she took to it. She wrestled in high school, so she's a naturally competitive person. She's athletic. And so she took to it, and she really, like, holy crap, she really enjoyed it. It gave her an outlet for things like a lot of us do, I think, really take to jiu-jitsu. We need that outlet for whatever reasons going on in our life. And but we've come into that has happened where, even when I was a brown belt, I was running classes when Brian wasn't there and stuff. So there was that issue, that dynamic of coach-student on the mat, and learning, having to separate, okay, this is not time for our relationship part, even though you want it to be. And it's easy to give in to that and joke around with each other, which, with jiu-jitsu, it's so laid back that it's normal to joke around with each other. But you've got to make sure there's a little bit of a line. Like, if I'm teaching class, I had to learn that. I had to learn, like, hey, I got to make sure that there's this, I'm not taking away from the other students because I'm so concerned with joking with her or teaching her or whatever. It was something that was hard for me to learn, and it was hard for her to learn that too. Like, because you're so used to your normal relationship life, it's hard to cut that off. And it actually came to a little bit of a head not that long ago, and we had like a little bit of a blow up. We've had blow ups on that before, by the way, which are kind of funny now. But it kind of came to a head, a little bit of a blow up, and we had to come to an agreement, like, hey, listen, when I'm teaching or I'm instructing or whatever, we just got to keep our relationship is not here. I mean, it's there, but we got to remember you're student, I'm teacher, and we got to make sure we're there on the mat. That's where it's got to be. Off the mat, then we're
and that definitely would be it, because you're not actually. Are you her instructor at times?
I have been at times. Okay. Yeah, I mean,
like, at that point, the hard part for the female or whoever the subordinate is going to be they're not number one anymore. Mm-hmm. They're the same number as everybody else, and that's hard, but. You get a little blow up here and there.
Well, what tell you what the hardest part we had so this is, and actually Brian knows now, it's pretty funny, but we've had, so this is something that's been difficult for me. And I think it's probably, I know it's happened to other jiu-jitsu couples where one is much higher ranking than the other and been training. Like, I've been training a lot longer than her, right? So I'll try to teach her something. Right. Okay. So yeah, it's happened to you too. Yeah. So you're trying to teach something, right? The same as I would teach anybody. Like, but it's even more important to me because it's someone I love. So I really want to impart this knowledge. Like, it took me this many years to learn this. I'm trying to hey, I'm trying to shortcut you here. And but they don't want to take to it for whatever reason. They're not hearing it because of whatever. And maybe I'm not communicating it properly. It could be my problem, or they're not picking it up. And then there comes in, just listen to what I'm telling you. And then they're looking at you like, don't talk to me like that.
Right.
Because they're listening to you in the relationship mode.
Yeah.
And you're like, just listen. And then it turns into, there's that barrier there. And then sure as shit, Brian will come by. No, do it like this. And then she'll do it. And I'm like, I just fucking told you that. But there's a difference. There's that there, and I don't know if you've encountered that because we've talked about it.
Yeah, so I need to co-sign on that real quick because funny you should say that. The issue that the only times Holly and I work really well together, really well. She's been my main training partner forever. She's helped me develop moves, not like I invented anything, but just kind of tweak things and kind of help me understand moves. Or, I've helped her, and she's literally been my primary training partner forever. So we do work really well together. But to touch on what Jason said, the thing that I do find just fascinating is that before I got my black belt, I would walk her through a position, and I wasn't even teaching, let's say. Jason's teaching, Professor's teaching. Yeah. And she would, get stuck, and I don't really understand it. And I would walk her through it and just wouldn't get it. Jason comes by, or Professor, verbatim says what I just said. Oh, okay. And I'm like, I literally just said that verbatim, Holly. And then this was her response every time. Yeah, but you're not a black belt. Yeah, but you're not a black belt. And that was her attitude. Like, I don't believe it unless the black belt says it. Okay. And I'm like,
it's a quote.
I'm like, okay. So when I got my black belt, I was more excited about now. You can't say that to me, right? The first time we get in the same situation, and I'm like, I literally just told you that. And you know what her response was?
You're not Professor.
No.
Oh.
She said, yeah, but you're the white belt or the black belt. Oh, shit. And I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Like, I wanted the black belt more than anything, so you could stop saying that to me. But my wife is on another level of clever and just destroying me because that's her thing. Like, it doesn't matter what I say. I'm just the white belt of the black belt community. And so, yeah, not unless Professor actually says it or Coach Jason says it. Yeah, it's just going to be like, man, whatever. I'm not buying into it until I hear from one of them. If they co-sign on it, then yes, then I'll go with it. But, that's the thing that it's funny because when he said that, I was like, oh my God, I feel almost validated now. Like, it's not just me that gets this treatment. It's something about, like he said, I think sometimes they don't want to believe you because it's just natural tendency to want to go against the grain because it is your husband or your significant other. It's like, no, I'm not doing that just because. I'm just gonna be difficult about it. Oh, okay, cool.
Hey, the ladies are good at that too, though.
I don't know.
Really good at that little. Yeah, but
yeah,
and it hurts. It hurts. It really hurts. They don't know it. But
what's funny is that we'll roll together, and Lisa's like, she's really good, and she's a blue belt, but she's really good blue belt. Yeah. And a lot of that has to do with her athleticism and her wrestling. She's been training over 2 years now, like pretty much since we started dating, and. So we'll go, and she'll amp it up, and I'll amp it up, and then she'll get frustrated because I amped it up. And we'll start, and if we're really kind of spatting a little bit, like and we start rolling together, and it gets really intense. Like we'll get like an intense roll, and then she'll get pretty mad, and then I'll get mad back. And we've had it where we've had like almost blow-ups on the mat in the middle of training. So Brian, I remember when this first would happen, because this has happened multiple times. When this first happened, Brian would kind of try to say something. The last time we had this happen, it was a pretty good one too. I just got up and I walked off the mat. I was like, I just got up and walked off the mat. Brian just he just looked away.
Yeah.
He's like, I let y'all handle you because I know y'all handle each other just fine, and I'm not going to worry about it.
He's like,
but yeah, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. And when we have great rolls, it's amazing. It's like the best. Next to sex, it's like the best thing ever because you're really sharing something you love with somebody you love, and you're having this moment with each other, and then you laugh about it. It's awesome. It's not as good as sex, but it's awesome. But man, when it doesn't go right, it is a disaster. It's so bad. It's like, and you love the person, but you're so mad at each other. It's just nuts, man. It's just nuts.
Yeah.
So it's like it is a good thing though, because you share that. Like coming on the podcast, she's like, "Oh, I can't wait to listen to the podcast." She goes, "I already packed your gi for you. I already got this stuff, so I'll see you at the academy when you leave." So you get that, and if you don't date someone that does jiu-jitsu or married to someone that does jiu-jitsu, you're not going to get that.
Yeah.
Right.
You're going to get when you coming home.
Yep.
Yeah.
What time?
Yeah.
Again, you're training again.
Yeah. Another day.
Yeah. And that's a huge conflict, because anybody who trains jiu-jitsu knows it's a very it's something that just overtakes your life in a way, because everything becomes about jiu-jitsu, and you just want to be at the mat and the academy all the time.
I wish there was a way to explain this, maybe, because I've battled this before, and I liked how Rogan explains it. You know, is that but I won't steal his quote again. The level of involvement from the brain that jiu-jitsu takes over every other martial art.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like, it's just, I don't want to say the level of intelligence, because you can be dumb and be great at jiu-jitsu, but the mental involvement, it never stops. It's like being addicted to a video game. That's the closest thing I could come up to it.
No, it makes sense, because when you're on the mats for those 5 minutes and we slap hands and we get going, my thought process has to be almost very singular. Like, whatever's going on with my job, my family, friends, I can't be distracted for those 5 minutes. It forces me to be 100% in that moment.
Right.
Because the minute I'm not 100% focused on this 5-minute row, I'm getting submitted.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's what makes it so, like, we both talk about how he's a little bit more extreme with it than I am, but I'll just say I'm not a very religious person. Yeah. But to me, it's like, the gym is kind of like my church. It's my sanctuary. Like, that's where I go to whatever's going on. Hey, leave that at the door. Let's get on these mats. Let's learn something. Let's train. And it's like, I don't think and as long as I've been training jiu-jitsu, it's like, I don't think I've ever left the gym and felt like, I knew I should have stayed home tonight. No, I've never felt that, because it's almost like, even if you had a shit night rolling and you got dominated by everybody, it's that camaraderie afterwards, where everybody hangs out after on the mats, and you just talk and you tell stories, and this happened on the mats tonight or whatever it may be. It's almost like, it's like my church. And people that are super religious, of course, that's blasphemy, because it's different for them. But for me, it's like, that's you're right. It's and the whole thing about the relationship, going back to that, it's like, it's so involved. Like, you're only going to get better when you're on the mat. So I'm going again, because if I'm not going tonight, someone is going, and that guy and me start at the same time, and I'll be damned if he's choking me out, next week because I missed tonight's class. But they don't understand that, because they're not involved in it like you are. You don't. So it's one of those things where you can't explain it to anybody.
That's hard. And I mean, I'm sure you guys are the same ways. Like, I would go home every day and every night, and I overthink.
Oh, it's the worst.
I should have this. I should have that. I should have this. Okay, well, next time this. And I'm visualizing and playing that back in my head a bazillion times until I can get back and do it again, and try it this way and try it that way. And
how much time do we have?
Well, it's really, he's got to start choking people.
Okay.
He's got to start choking people.
Yeah.
No. I just, because what you're saying about that, it's just, I wanted to just touch on that side of what you just said. It's when I started jiu-jitsu, my first class, they partnered me up with some 9-year-old, 12-year-old little kid who was like 90 pounds. I was 224 pounds in my getting ready to be 30 something. And in my mind, I'm like, what are y'all doing? I'm going to murder this kid. Like, can I get a grown-up partner here? Like, this is ridiculous. This kid proceeded to take my soul from my body. It was the worst, most humiliating, humbling 5 minutes of my life.
Yeah.
But I bring it up because my first goal in jiu-jitsu was not to be a martial artist or get in better shape. Yeah. I wanted to learn this sorcery because I wanted to get that goddamn kid that got me. And I trained my ass off for like 6 months. And I caught up with that kid and I owned him, and I probably made that kid quit. I don't know. But, there was like, that's the competitive side of things, that it's just, you just become obsessed with it, you know?
You might know that kid as Ryan Gordon.
Ryan Gordon, yeah. But he came back. Yeah. I talked him out of it and came back out of retirement. But that was my first goal in jiu-jitsu was, and it might have been, obviously it was not the greatest first goal, but it was like, that's where the addiction came in. And that's where it for me, initially, my goals were all competitive. You know, I never took time off. I always wanted to be on the mats because I understood other people, when you're not training, somebody else is training and all that good jazz. And, you know, my wife calls me a fun sucker because I suck the fun out of everything. You know, and it's true because
Holly's hilarious.
I do.
I know, I'm starting to like her.
She's
Like, it's like
hilarious. Point.
Yeah,
These two, if there is not a more perfect match than these two, I don't know one exists because they are both freaking hilarious.
Yeah, and it is. I tend to be a little bit of a fun sucker because to me, the fun part comes after. Let's get good at something.
Yeah.
Okay, let's be proficient in it. Let's get really knowledgeable, and then the fun will come after. When I first started jiu-jitsu, he'll tell you, me and him had laughs, but I hated jiu-jitsu because I wasn't about the journey. I was just about getting better because I wanted to get the people that were getting me. That was all I knew, was just being that competitive, and I became obsessed with, I want to be good because I want to get that guy, and I want to get that guy, and I want to get that guy, you know. And whether it was the right approach initially or not, you know, it did fuel me to continue and not quit. Yeah. So I am grateful for that because, you know, I mean, how many times you now it's to the point where it's hard to invest. You know, you get these new white belts in class, and you know, you want to invest time into them, and hey, how you doing? And you want to make them feel welcome, because that wasn't what it was like at our first gym. No. You know, nobody spoke to you. It was very cliquey, and if you went in with the cool kids, you didn't learn much.
That's 100% true.
Yeah.
Well, it just was a harder learning curve.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was true. It was definitely I don't know. It was very different when you say that now, thinking about it. Yeah, no one really talked to you too much, and other than other white belts.
Well, you got to remember those back then, is it was a smaller population doing it, less schools, less SIF. There was, I don't want to call it a higher turnover, but a lot of people quit.
And you know, I think that's what it was. I think those guys back then, they understood that the fresh crop of white belts was probably not going to make it past 6 months. Yeah. And maybe that's why there was not the investment, because like I was just saying, even now I feel that, you know, and we're way more inclusive than it was when him and I first started. Now, you know, I go out of my way to talk to the lower belts, I shake everybody's hand and I want them to feel welcome. But at the same time, it's kind of difficult because it's like, are you going to be here tomorrow, or are you going to quit? You know, you've been here for a month. Okay. Can we get to 3 months? Can we get to 6 months? And then, you know, right around that blue belt level, it's kind of like you kind of know the guys that are going to stick around. And you know, and that's the difficult thing now, because it's like, it's a hard thing, because who do you invest into? Because you never know who's just, you know, you work out, obviously. Yeah. I'm imagining that's the same for you guys.
Pretty good.
Yeah, right. I've seen one or two of your videos. Yeah. You've lifted weights once or twice.
Once or twice.
You know what it's like after, for the right after New Year's?
Yes.
It's similar. That's the thing. It's like, okay, you know, yes, we got all these newbies here. Who's going to be here in 6 months, you know? And so it just becomes like, nah. Let's see where you're at in 6 months.
I've always treated them out like Vietnam. Like, if you're a white belt, you're like a replacement. And there's no point in learning your name until you've spent your time here and earned your stripes. Yeah. So like 6 months in Vietnam would be like a blue belt, I guess. Yeah. So that's, or, you know, World War II, they would say the replacements. Yeah, I'm not gonna. There's no point in learning your name. You're not gonna be around long.
I kind of agree with that.
Just kidding. No, I'm kind of kidding, but truthfully, it's hard to keep up with all the new, because I'll have like Lisa or someone say, you know, so and so, white belt. I go, who? And I feel horrible, right? Because it's somebody I've probably talked to and whatever, and I'm not trying to be a dick, but I just, you know, you see these guys just kind of rotating in and out, and you'll see the ones that start to stick through. But it is like that now, where they just rotate through in and out. I guess they've always been like that, but
more so now.
I don't know. I guess I get it now, like kind of like you said, where the upper belts, when you were
maybe
there
they
a while,
something we
they
didn't
started
know,
investing in you. When they were there a while, they started investing. In you. You started noticing that attention, like Ricardo. Remember Ricardo?
It's my first row.
Remember his triangle?
Row with that guy, and he was getting ready for an MMA fight. Nobody told me. This guy triangled me about 19 times in 5 minutes.
And let me explain his triangle. So it's not like a regular triangle. It was Ricardo. It was like he did this. He would explode into his submissions, but it was not spazzy. It was just he would snap them
violent,
on. It was just violent. He would violently snap it on. So like when his triangle came down, and he was very fit dude, and he was built for jiu-jitsu, by the way, and for fighting. he would just bring that leg down. It was like
the thigh just smashing you in the side of the
neck. It was like a 2x4, just boom, lock into place, and then the other one, boom, and you're just like almost knocked out from the concussion of him slapping on the triangle.
And you wake up just in time to go right back to sleep from the actual choke.
Yes.
But you know what? That guy, Ricardo, he was an amazing guy, and I'll never forget our first row after he triangled me 19 times. He said, "You know why that's happening?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "Obviously, if I knew, I wouldn't be doing it." And he said, "Your hands, either you're gonna come 2 in or 2 out, but never 1 in and 1 out." He's like, "That's a wet dream for me," and that's what I was doing. I was diving in like this. Yeah. So he gave me that little life lesson right there, and I just want to go on record as saying that if Ricardo's listening, I'd like a rematch. Sure? So yes.
Because you guys black belt a little while back.
I know, but he's on my to-do list, Ricardo, and I'd love to get on the mats with Ricardo.
He had this tattoo of a scorpion on his neck. He was from like El Salvador.
No, he wasn't one of my people. Don't even try
that. From Venezuela. I think from Venezuela.
No, he was from somewhere.
He was from Venezuela, right? And he had the meanest look. Like, he was intimidating. Once you got to know him, he was like a really nice guy. Yeah. But he was very intense. When he fought too, he was a very scary guy. But
one of the nicest people you'll ever meet.
Guy. Once he warmed up to you and realized, once you're past the replacement stage, he would invest in you a little bit. And
grab that.
He was actually a really nice guy, but he was one of the scariest people you ever meet. Like, I don't know, but he had like a job in oil and gas, made good money. Like, he was like a regular suit and tie kind of guy. But I guess he came from Venezuela. He probably had
It was definitely not El Salvador.
Yeah,
clearly.
I'm almost positive it's Venezuela. Yeah. This is the Salvadoran sensation right here.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
My bad.
Steal that
I didn't mean to do that.
So you guys got to choke people.
Yeah,
so I want to start wrapping, but I'm going to like little cliffhanger on this one. Your talk early on about testing. Okay, so that's something next one we've really got to dive into.
Yeah, because I definitely want to talk to you about that, because I'm really curious to just get your take on it and his, because he's in a different place than I am, and definitely would love to talk about that.
Yeah, it's I think that's a really good one, because it's a lot of, but we'll dive into that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I think it's a good topic, because different gyms do it differently.
Yeah,
they do. Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Cool. Yeah, we gotta go check.
No, yeah, thanks for coming on, man.
Absolutely, thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, that was good.
Awesome.
Yeah, so this potentially could be leading into something.
Look, we'll
see.
This is kind of what I'm hoping for. So
we'll see.
We'll see.
I don't know. We may have to have a choke contest to figure that out.
There you go.
Well, whoever needs to be choked, or if it needs to be me, whatever. Let's make it happen.
Either way, it'll be 2-on-1. Either way, how it goes.
Ew.
The devil's threesome.
We'll have to add on to that meme you made earlier. That'll be good.
We'll add a third
so thank you, everybody. It was awesome. We'll see you guys next time, and peace. Yeah, peace.
All right.
Okay, don't say anything.